Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur, and I bet this is a story you didn't think I was going to comment on because I am actually late in doing so. And you would be correct. I was a little sick, so I did my news stories in the wrap up with that fairly long live stream from a couple days ago. But this story I didn't want to discuss in that live stream because I had a fair amount of thoughts on it, and that was the idea that Uber might be using artificial intelligence to detect whether or not you're drunk. And I have so many different thoughts about this. Not the least of which because I am very suspicious of artificial intelligence these days. I'm getting probably more so, to be honest. Not conspiracy level suspicious, but fair amount. And I wasn't sure how I felt about this. In fact, I still don't know what I think about this completely, and not for the reasons you might think, believe it or not. So let's get to the article. Ride-hailing apps like Uber have become known as safer alternatives to driving when intoxicated. Now the company is looking to learn a lot more about its late-night riders. Uber filed a patent application Thursday, first spotted by CNN, that envisions using machine learning to detect whether a potential passenger is behaving abnormally. The patent application is vague about what exactly constitutes as an abnormal state, but seems to be referring to intoxication and fatigue. The system tracks user behavior based on typing speed and accuracy, device angle, walking speed, and more. Now, let's start with that. Typing speed, some people type fast, some people type slow. I guess the machine could figure out what your average words per minute are, but I don't know. Walking speed, yeah, people walk differently, I guess, when they're intoxicated or fatigued. That makes sense. So it compares the data device angle. Interesting. Okay. It plugs information into an algorithm along with additional information, details about when and where the ride was requested. If a request comes in late from an area packed with bars and the user keeps dropping their phone, it's a pretty good indicator that the passenger is drunk. Makes sense. When an altered user is identified, the application explains there are a number of different options, including matching the user with specific drivers, altering the drive, alerting the driver about a user's possible intoxication, and modifying pickup or drop-off locations. The application says the technology is a means to avoid, quote, safety incidents and personal conflict incidents that can occasionally occur when users and or providers behave uncharacteristically. Once in a while, they just leave me speechless. Uber has come under fire in the past few months after CNN investigation found 103 Uber drivers have been accused of sexual assaults or abuse within the past 4 years. In many cases, passengers were intoxicated. An Uber spokesperson in a statement to CNN said safety is the company's top priority this year and cited recent protocol updates such as rerunning driver background checks annually moving forward. The patent application was drafted by current and former member of Uber's trust and safety team in 2016. 2016, the people who threw all the rules out the window, and published Thursday. At the moment, it is just a patent application, may never make it to Uber's app. Uber did not respond to requests for comment from CNBC. So, here's my big question with this. What does Uber exactly plan to do with this? I mean, do they plan to use this on the drivers? That would be nice, I guess. You don't want intoxicated people driving, but the drivers usually aren't using the phone, and it seems like they're using this for the passengers. Now, if they're using it for the passengers, what use is this going to be to the driver? I mean, it said something about how they would alert the driver that the passenger might be intoxicated. And that could be useful, except I think for most cases, after 10:30, most drivers assume most of their passengers are going to be drunk. We just assume that because it's the time, sometimes it's the day. We just kind of get that feeling. And what if they, let the driver know that the passenger is intoxicated. I mean, that might actually be, I don't know what that would actually accomplish, because if someone doesn't want an intoxicated person, that just means it's going to get much, much harder to get that person home. And if they don't care either way, they don't care either way. What the drivers don't want to know is whether or not the person's going to be drunk. We assume a lot of people are going to be drunk. That's why they're calling us. We want to know if they're going to be safe. We want to know if, as a drunk person, they aren't going to try to slam our head against the window. That's what we want to know. And that's something this algorithm cannot really figure out. It can't. Now, I've been advocating for like background checks on passengers for a while. I'm not as much into fingerprinting as I used to be. I've seen some pretty convincing videos recently that has convinced me that fingerprinting doesn't really do anything. But what the drivers want is some safety sense from Uber, like they are taking our safety just as seriously as they are the passengers, which actually the passengers are not even taking that seriously, as evidenced by the fact that so many Uber drivers are in fact violent, malicious felons that have done these things multiple times, and they get on the Uber platform. I'm not talking about your everyday guy held up a convenience store one time. No, I'm talking about the people who have a history of sexual assault and violence towards people, and they get on the Uber platform. And so if they're let on, then of course Uber really doesn't care about the passengers. But drivers do want the passengers to be vetted a little, because it's becoming a increasing problem that passengers are attacking the drivers and they don't care. And why won't Uber do anything? I don't know. I mean, this is probably them saying, oh, we're going to do something. We're going to have this AI. It's going to tell them when you're drunk. That doesn't help. It only shows us that we're intoxicated, or that the passenger is intoxicated, I should say. And that doesn't help us. And in fact, if that's going to be your warning for people not to pick up the rides, then I think you're missing the overall point of Uber. Because one of the best things about Uber and Lyft is that you can get drunk people home safely. That is why I drove a lot longer than I probably intended to. Because, guys, I drove longer than... I drove much longer for Uber than I should have. Because I, for personal reasons, felt it was my responsibility to bring drunk people home so that they didn't kill anyone on the road. Unfortunately, I have experience with this, and it is a very, very bad thing, and I wanted to help people. And then after a while, I kind of came around like, you know what? I'm doing this wonderful service. I'm doing this honorable thing, really, and I'm not being appreciated for it, and that's why I don't drive and that's one of the reasons I don't drive anymore, because it's not worth it to me, and I don't feel appreciated. But I did it longer than I should have, because I felt responsible to the people to get them home. And so what this thing does is essentially makes it harder for those people to get home. And I mean, people don't like the idea, like, oh, you're letting a drunk person in your car. That's dangerous, yes, but it's also dangerous to let them be driving. So for them to make an app that would essentially let drivers know that someone is probably very intoxicated, and for that, then that person will probably, like, you know, not pick that person up because they don't want intoxicated people in their car. And this is going to happen with a lot of new drivers, by the way. New drivers are not going to want to take chances on drunk people because they don't know what they're like. I mean, you don't know what they're like even when you're an experienced driver, but when you're an unexperienced driver, it's a scary thought, and you might not pick those people up. So this could actually be very hurtful. It might take away the only safety aspect that Uber has, which that's not a good thing in my opinion. I do think drunk people should be taken home. I don't expect this to actually make it to the final phases, by the way. I think it's going to be too complicated, and I think for these reasons, that's why. If Uber wants to be serious about doing background checks on the passengers, you know what? It's not too difficult. Have them submit an application and do a basic background check within 7 days. And once you pass, then they can get on the platform. I mean, the airports do basic background checks, and you know, an employer will do a basic background check. I'm sure you can do it. And maybe charge like a one-time fee of $20 to do it. So I don't know. It seems like, I know this is Uber trying to say we've got the drivers' backs, but not only does it seem like a very flawed way to have our backs, but it kind of defeats the whole purpose of Uber. So I mean, big surprise, not for it, but again, I'm not for it because I think drivers are getting screwed. I think it's because they're defeating the whole purpose of Uber at this point. So, anyway, I don't know. What would you guys think could be a better way for Uber to have the drivers' backs? I personally think let them carry firearms myself, but you know, Uber's pretty much against that in most states. But I would love to hear your thoughts. So comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe. If you enjoy the videos I make, consider becoming a Patreon member. It's totally optional, of course, but even as little as $1 a month goes a long way to helping the channel run smoothly. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.